You're listening to episode 189 of the Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast. I love when I get connected to like-minded, world-shifting women like today's guest. Emily Tuttle is a photographer, mom, wife, mindfulness advocate, and founder of Pause and Purpose. Emily and I were connected through the frequent podcast guest, my friend and mentor, Sheryl Turner. Emily is one of these people who I could just talk to all day. What I really admire about Emily is not only the fact that she started a business during a pandemic, but that she saw a need for a community and she courageously decided to build that community. This episode is brought to you by Spiritually Seeking. When you go to spiritually-seeking.com and enter the promo code PODCAST at checkout, you can save 20% off your order of numerology reports, affirmation cards, card readings, and spiritual life guidance. Just head over to spiritually-seeking.com and use the promo code PODCAST. While you're listening today, I would love for you to share what resonates with you. You can screenshot that you're listening, share it on Instagram, tag me in it at MindBizLife, or you can drop me a message on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at MindBizLife. Don't forget to share this episode with a friend. Thanks to all of you and all the many times that you've shared. You've helped us get this little old podcast into 153 countries and counting. How amazing is that? Speaking of amazing, are you ready to meet Emily? You know what to do. Tune in, turn it up, let's go.
You're listening to Master Your Mind, Business and Life. Conversations with everyday world shifters, truth seekers, and rule breakers. Here's your host, Lauren Smith.
Hey, Emily, welcome to the show. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Hi, Lauren. Me too. Thanks for having me today.
We were connected through the ever so amazing Sheryl Turner, who also writes for Pause and Purpose. So before I get to all of my many questions, let's start with the simple one. Tell us what Pause and Purpose is.
Pause and Purpose is the only mindfulness program that can be done anywhere, that can be done completely offline with your friends, your family, your coworkers, with your school, your clients, so anyone that you'd like. And it's the only one that doesn't include any apps. So we are a new company. We started in Wilton, Connecticut, just at the beginning of the pandemic. And my story and background is that I'm a photographer and I'm a new mom. And I've been getting into mindfulness the past couple of years. And the problem that I was finding was that there wasn't anything where I felt like I was a part of a community, where I was building social bonds and troubleshooting and having people to turn to while I was going through my mindfulness journey. And I know, like a lot of people who are empathic and creatives, I literally get dizzy when I spend too much time on the computer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably feel the same way. It's like, it's not a very comforting place for me to find a community. And there are just so many options out there. So when I was struggling with postpartum anxiety in the beginning of last year, my thought was to find a local group that I could go to for support and learn about different topics within the mindfulness world that I was curious about. And I didn't want to do it online. So I started looking at local yoga studios to see if there was anything that I could really feel affiliated with, that I could really feel a part of. And I couldn't find anything that wasn't, super formal, like going to a Buddhist temple, or super isolating, like sitting in a room and meditating quietly.
Right.
So I asked some friends who I know who are into mindfulness as well at varying levels to come to my home that summer for a 12-week program that would be developed by someone I had shot through my photography job, who was a yoga teacher. And she created a 12-week program. And every week we did some yoga. We meditated together on a topic. And we discussed that topic at the end. And we also incorporated some journal entries and some homework assignments and some readings. So we were fully encasing ourselves in this topic from week to week. And it was topics that I really needed to learn about that, I feel like mindfulness on your own can go so far. It's like, but how do I apply it?
Right.
How do I apply it in this example? How do I apply it in this example when I feel so wrapped up in my emotions that I can't even see beyond them? So those girls in my group became a sounding board to, like talking about how guilty I had felt that my body was failing me. I wasn't bouncing back from my pregnancy as fast as other women that I'd seen. That was a real like shame area for me. And I just couldn't get out of that thought pattern of, why can't I get back to the gym? Like, why am I tired after 10 minutes of walking? Why does my back hurt so much just using the computer? Like, I'm only 31. What's the problem here?
Right.
But the other women in my group, they all had, none of them actually had kids, but they all had different issues to share with me. Like, one of them told me, when I wake up in the morning, sometimes I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk or not because my back hurts so much. It's like this stuff we don't really share online with each other or
right. Yeah.
in casual conversation.
Yeah. Those hidden struggles that almost like it's not that it's not worth complaining about, right? But you just keep it to yourself because it's not like a big highlight, I'm not going to highlight my pain points here all day.
Exactly. And when you get together with friends, often you're trying so hard to lift each other up and be a good listener and share the good things that are going on in your life, that it feels like there's not always time, especially when you have kids, to delve deeper into stuff you really want to work on. So that's really why I started this, because I was craving it so much in my life. And actually, since starting this and since starting groups and being a part of them, I feel as if I need it less and less. It's not weekly anymore that I take part in it, but I carry those lessons with me.
Oh, I love that. And I love that, first of all, it was important for you to disconnect and learn offline, because so often we are pushed online. And for people like you and I who, work behind a computer all day, I don't really find comfort in, going online to have this big supportive community. Not saying that, I don't like my community or don't engage with people online, but there is just something really special that we can't take away from that face-to-face interaction, that human connection. Yeah. And I know, especially in times like COVID, people are missing face-to-face connection more than ever. I think we almost got this wake-up call of, yes, we were almost robots behind our phones. And then like when you're forced into lockdown and you're forced not to see people, it really helps you just have a different perception of how you were functioning and what you took for granted a lot. How was it starting Pause on Purpose kind of during this pandemic, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so I really looked at it as an opportunity, and I kind of felt like it was even more pressing to start it now, because this was an opportunity to be creative and figure out how could people meet live and get that same kind of support that I got during the summer. So when I started it, I reached out to a woman, Barbara Franzino, who I've worked with through my physical therapy, and who does basically meditations while she's massaging you. So it's pretty magical.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's a certified myofascial worker and yoga person. So she has all these different tools in her pocket. So I reached out to her, and she agreed to write a free mindfulness guide for 6 weeks that I directed people on how to use on Zoom or House Party or FaceTime. So that's what we did. We either did Zoom or House Party, or we did in person outside, 6 feet away.
Oh, that's really innovative. And I like how you use your creativity to think outside of the box, because it would have been so easy for you to have been like, oh, this was intended to be face to face, and now we can't do it, and I'm just going to have to quit.
That would have been very easy.
Too easy, right?
Yeah. But this is all about, like, the whole company is built around the magic of social relationships, how it really is kind of the most magical thing that we have in our pocket when it comes to learning mindfulness.
Mm.
And I think it's possible no matter what.
At its core, what do you really believe mindfulness is? Like, what does it mean to be mindful?
There's the definitions, but for me, going through my day and having that gift of awareness, when I get stressed or when I feel really happy, where I can stop for a second before I speak, before I act, before I even speak to myself in my head. I can take a breath, think about where I'm feeling emotions in my body, and really internalize things that are beautiful and meaningful and joyful, and go easy on myself when things hit me and feel traumatic.
Mm. That's a huge one. I feel like, especially as a parent, because
Exactly.
things can hit you from out of the blue. And sometimes it's, you're already having a day, and then it's just that one thought of like, oh, now I have to make dinner and be a mom. And
Yeah,
the whole day
absolutely.
builds up on you. And it's not so much that the kids are making it harder. It's just you have another body to take care of now. You're another body that you're responsible for. And that is huge all in itself.
Oh
And
yeah.
it can be really hard to give yourself grace in those tough moments as well.
Yeah. Did you struggle with that as well in the beginning?
Yeah, I think I'm still struggling with it. And actually, I
I
think
know, right?
it was Cheryl who actually really helped me learn how to give myself more grace.
Mm,
Because I would say these things to her of like just the guilt of silly things.
so much guilt.
So much guilt for the silliest things, and I didn't realize how much I was calling myself a bad mom for things that
Mm,
really have no weight to them. Like,
mm-hmm,
oh my gosh, I forgot to sign the permission slip. I'm such a bad mom.
mm-hmm,
Really? Does that make you a bad
mm-hmm.
mom? No, but like I wasn't mindful to how those
Yeah.
statements were really impacting my life. But not only that, it was really counterbalancing of how I saw myself and how I truly projected myself as a mom.
Mm. Yeah, that brings up a really good point, and something that I struggle with too is in mindfulness, it allows us to kind of zoom out and see, okay, that permission slip maybe didn't get in, but look how much I care. Like, look what a great mom I am
Yeah.
for even caring about this permission slip. It's like, it's looking at the big picture, I think. That's how my husband describes mindfulness. I always think that's really smart.
I love that take of it because I hadn't thought of it that way either, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
parents would be like, well, do it again tomorrow. But it is like those little things sometimes weigh at me the most. And it was like I'm letting my kid down. But it was also that I was letting myself down, right? Like I wasn't the perfect mom. Like,
Yeah,
oh gosh. And perfectionism is
I can
something that's,
relate to that.
yes, that whole other level. So, how do you navigate that with mindfulness and dropping the perfection?
That's a really good question, because just recently, I think this is something that I've been like, oh, you're getting good at this, Emily. Recently, I've been just looking at things more big picture. I've been taking my nutrition more seriously this year, and anyone who practices mindfulness will see that other things in your life often take on a new aptitude.
Mm.
So this year with nutrition, I've zoomed out and I've said, okay, I have this goal to feel healthy and well and to have a lot of energy. And I am going to find happiness in food, and I'm going to love the journey. And every day I'm going to try to do this. But on days when, things get hectic and I'm basically working on autopilot, some days I'll, down a whole bag of M&Ms, which is not part of my ideal diet, let me tell you. Sugar actually just adds to the problem for me. It makes me even more manic. So that happens some days. And to just look at that and be like, okay, this happened today. And I noticed that this happened. And that's okay, because my long-term goal is not being sacrificed because tomorrow I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do better. Yeah, it just goes back to looking at that big picture goal versus inspecting your tiny little mistakes that you make along the way.
Yeah, and how just thoughtful of you to be able to take that step back and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do better. I'm the same way right now. It's funny that you brought up health because I realized just how much water I wasn't drinking throughout the
Yeah,
day. And
me too.
when I started thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, I'm not really moving my body as much, right? So I was like, okay, well, that's another problem. Like, I need to be more mindful and getting up and moving my body. But then I realized, okay, my back hurts. Oh, probably because you've been sitting too much. When I brought that awareness to how much water I wasn't drinking, it's now like like this morning I woke up and then my first thought was, okay, you have to have some water, right? Because
Yeah.
I was like, you brought it to the forefront of your mind as a problem. And it's like, I'm solution based and it's really easy to get your water consumption in, right? So that's
Yeah, there's tricks.
yes, it's a small fix, but it was really easy for me to just put the water bottle next to where I was working instead of having it in the fridge, right? That easy reminder of, hey,
Yeah.
water, the visuals right there. Are there any other tricks that you use to just heighten your awareness to self with mindfulness?
Yeah. I was just going to mention that, what you said about kind of knowing yourself and knowing if you can put water out, it'll be a reminder for you.
Hmm.
I think that is brilliant to first get into mindfulness, to just be able to understand yourself, how you tick, where you might, where your foibles might be, for lack of a more simple word. So for me, I think why I started Pause and Purpose is that I love being held accountable by people who love me and who I love and respect. So I'm a big proponent of hiring a coach if you can afford it. I have one coach. She's a health coach, and she holds me accountable because exercise and healthy lifestyle does not come naturally to me. It was not how I was raised. I was raised on ring dings and watching Full House.
Yeah, I feel you, girl.
It's just not baked into who I am.
Yeah.
So I will quickly find myself going back into my old patterns when I don't have someone to build me up and and to remind me that when I regress a little bit, that it doesn't have this huge meaningful lesson behind it. It's actually just, sometimes when I exercise and I regress, it's because we're trying something new and challenging.
Right.
Yeah. So my coach, Maura Hyam is her name. She really puts things into perspective for me and makes it fun. And, just like in Pause and Purpose, she shares her difficulties with me and I help her with that. I just think it's the most magical type of relationship that we can have, a relationship that we lift people up and, we all have our different strengths and weaknesses, but they're not the same as everybody else's. So we can kind of create synergy together.
Yes, I love that. And knowing what your own strengths are and not downplaying them, I think is also huge
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
a lot of our strengths they're subtle to us. Like you are a photographer, and while that may come natural to you of just being a very visual person, for other
Right.
people, they don't have that same vision. Their brain quite literally does not work the same way. So sometimes just even those little minute things that we're just naturally good at, we overlook as a strength and we forget that we bring that to the table.
Oh, that's so true. I know so many times, people will compliment you and you're like, really?
Yeah.
What? On that?
I know. I don't think it was that great. I mean, that's like my B plus work, but
Right. Absolutely. Like
yeah.
I could never do what you're doing. Your voice you're so eloquent, and I feel like this is just so natural for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, and that's the same goes back to you, right? Because photography, well, first let me say I gave my go at it. I was like, no, this is not for me, first of all, but also to you have a young daughter
Hmm.
and to start a new business while doing so, like props to you, mama, because
Oh,
that
thanks,
in
Lauren.
itself is really huge and you should be proud of what you're doing. But speaking of being a mom, how are you incorporating mindfulness into your parenting style?
I really enjoy this. It's almost the thing that I enjoy most about parenting is being
Mm.
able to work through these challenges with her. Like, oh, I know how to fix this. So we do a lot of when she's crying or having a tantrum, we watch Daniel Tiger. So
Oh, I love Daniel
I know
Tiger.
he's the best. So
Yes.
I reference those little songs, like take a deep breath and count to 4,
Mm,
and she really stops and she breathes, and it's so adorable.
that's huge.
I know. So she's really learning how to think before she begins acting. And also, we do a lot of education together around emotions. She has a book about all of these animals and their different emotions, and she's become so interested in it that she asks me throughout the day, when people are making expressions and she sees them, she says, "What does this person feel, mommy?"
Oh, wow. That is so amazing. And it's I love that you brought this up about she's learning emotions because something in my, adult mind that I wasn't conscious of is how many emotions we actually have and how many times we mislabel our emotions.
So true.
Yeah, and so I just can't imagine and you said she's 2, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for a 2-year-old to be that mindfully aware and trying to decode all these different emotions, I think is so amazing. And I am so pumped for this next generation. Like, I'm
I
telling you,
know.
millennial parents, we may not do it all right, but I really think that just raising a more conscious generation is something that we really are getting right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like, especially with boys, this is the first generation of parents, I feel, where really as like a movement, they're telling boys it's okay to feel and to show emotions.
Mm, that's so true. And to also, I'm also seeing more boys. I have nephews, and I see them, post things that are empowering, like don't give the same message to your daughter. Like you shouldn't be giving the message to your daughters of be safe, stay in the
Mm.
light when you're walking to the car. You should be telling your sons, having the same conversation,
Oh, I
respect
love that.
women, like you shouldn't be making them feel any certain type of way, like scared. Like so
Yeah,
have those same
victimized.
exactly, like have those same
Hmm.
type of conversations. And that I think just the conversations that are being had today are
Yeah,
valuable.
yeah, absolutely. My husband is always saying that, I'm getting him into this world of mindfulness now. So he feels like he has access to his emotions. But this is all so new to him because in the past, every emotion would just get distilled down to anger.
Ooh.
And that was kind of the only emotion that he felt, not shameful showing people was anger. So now he says he feels he has access to all of these other emotions like sadness. And it's been a difficult and interesting journey for him to begin to figure out his way of showing those emotions.
And it's also an empowering journey too. I know I can only imagine how difficult that is, especially for, a male I'm sure he's very masculine too, just from the vibe I'm getting from,
Mm,
how he was expressing himself too. But
yeah,
then to bring it back what you're saying of young boys, then that like it's almost this unlearning of generational hurt that we're breaking too in this whole process.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's
that's
so
such a good way to put it.
It's so big. Well, I know you also have so many amazing guides available currently. Who can benefit most from these guides?
I would say people who are semi new to mindfulness and maybe want to deepen their practice by learning to teach others, but aren't quite ready to commit to a degree or a certification, would just like to jump in and teach mindfulness, learn mindfulness themselves, be holding hands with the wonderful authors in a way, because they can ask them any questions that they want. They're very accessible, and who would like to build a stronger, more open community within their own community.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is great for social workers. I've seen it done a lot at yoga studios for yogis who have a yoga background, but not necessarily are big into meditation. And friend groups. And I'm really excited to announce that we are creating a school mindfulness program.
Yes, I was literally just thinking in my head, like, this should be in schools. This should be in
Yes.
schools. Okay, tell us more about that.
So I was speaking with my friend Amy, who is the special ed director for a district. And she was telling me just about the mental health impact of the pandemic and how it's been so isolating, which I expected, but I didn't expect that there would be an increase in her kids going to the ER for mental health issues and for, eating disorders and not showing up to class because what's the point?
Yeah.
Because they were unable to find really purpose, because those milestones are so important, especially to teenagers, like graduation and prom. And for that stuff to be taken away, it hits them so hard. So I started doing some research, and I spoke with a friend who is a data scientist for a Department of Education. And she kind of gave me the hard facts of, we're not really sure the complete impact of the pandemic on our kids yet, but we've seen that health crises can give short-term and long-term effects on students. And here's what we've seen. We've seen grades going down. We've seen attendance going down. Kids are rating that their anxiety is higher. So the three of us are working on something that can be for a bunch of different grades, so different guides for different grades. So the writers can be chosen for their expertise. So, a second grade mindfulness guide might have animals and pictures, whereas a high school mindfulness guide might be a little bit more technical. Mindfulness-based stress reduction might be incorporated. And at the moment, we are working on pitching to schools, and then we're going to do a fundraiser through I Fund Women so that it will be completely free.
This is so amazing. Oh my goodness. So if someone is listening today and they're like, yes, 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 I want this, not only we'll say in their schools, maybe they are an educator and they want to contact you to see how they can work with you as well. But if they just want to get your guides and they want to start facilitating this, where can they go to connect with you further and to learn more about Pause and Purpose?
The website's a great place to go. And at the top, you can subscribe to our newsletter, and you automatically get sent a preview of our facilitator's guide and week one of one of our guides, Building Resilience. So that's a really great way to dive in and see what we're all about. And they can email me anytime at hello@pauseandpurpose.com.
Oh, beautiful. Emily, you are doing such important work. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining me
Lauren.
today and sharing your light.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for, going around and finding these people who are so inspiring to speak to.
Thank you. I love Emily's vibe and her overall purpose-led mission. You can find direct links to Emily's website and social channels on this week's episode notes found on mindbizlife.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you tune in and turn it up. I'm back on Friday for another episode of Fuel Your Life Friday, but until then, remember, Every level of life is an opportunity to grow. Be well, my friend.